have seen young men and women across the breadth of our country engineer making ventilators, making beds for our hospitals. These, without doubt, are the heroes of the moment. Fellow Kenyans, in order to secure the achievements that we have made so far and to build on them in the future, I now today, once again, further order and direct as follows. 1, the Cabinet Secretary for Interior Coordination of National Government, in conjunction with the Chairperson of the Council of Governors, shall in 3 weeks convene an inclusive national consultative conference to review our national and county COVID-19 response so far, and together with all stakeholders, we chart Kenya's post-COVID future, because this is a future that we can see if we continue with our civic responsibility. Number 2, the closure of bars and nightclubs shall continue for a further 30 days. However, the prohibition against the sale of alcohol by licensed hotels with residents is today vacated. In the next 30 days, I have also directed that the Ministry of Health, in conjunction with all bar owners, will develop self-regulating mechanisms as part of their civic responsibility to their clientele in order to allow their resumption. 3, that the closing time for restaurants and eateries be and is hereby varied by 1 hour from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. effective the 27th of August, 2020. 4, in accordance with the recommendations of the Interfaith Council, the maximum numbers of persons permitted to attend funerals and weddings is reviewed upwards from 15 to 100, with all in attendance abiding with the Ministry of Health protocols. 5, that the ban on the sale of second-hand clothing, otherwise known in Kenya as mitumba, is herewith lifted, and details of how this will be operated and the protocols for the same will be announced by the government tomorrow. 6, that the Ministry of Sports, Culture and Heritage and the Ministry of Health will jointly issue guidelines on the gradual resumption of sporting events in Kenya. 7, that the nationwide curfew that is currently in force between the hours of 9 p.m. to 4 a.m. daily be and is hereby extended by a further 30 days. Fellow Kenyans, in concluding my remarks today, let me take this opportunity to say something about our Constitution. Tomorrow, the 27th of August, 2020, will mark the 10th year since we promulgated our new Constitution. This Constitution has been hailed the world over as one of the most progressive, not only in our region or the African continent, but the world over. And this is because it is an embodiment of what a social contract between people of different origins and their governments should be. But I must remind us all of one thing. If our past is constantly at war with our present, we will, together, lose our future. And the spirit of this Constitution was meant to reconcile our past with the present in order to secure our future. But the crafters of this social contract also told us and reminded us that a constitution was a work in progress. And as such, we were made to adopt it with a promise that in the future, we will make it better. 10 years later, the moment to improve on it, I believe, is now. And as I said in my Madaraka Day speech, we must not, as a people, succumb to the paralysis of constitutional rigidity. We must treat a constitution as a living being, as a living document that must constantly adjust to our emerging realities. In our past, all our constitutions have been what we may call ceasefire documents, agreements created to either dodge confrontation or avoid civil conflict. And indeed, if you do a textual reading of these constitutions, they represent a constant argument between the past and the present. And that is why I call them ceasefire documents. But 10 years after one of the most progressive constitutions, I believe the moment calls on us to do better. Instead of a ceasefire document that enforces a zero-sum game in which winner takes all and loser is expected to accept, the moment calls us to a new time. The moment calls us to create a constitutional order that will long endure and survive and not be a conflict-stopping constitution, but rather a future-building document. And on this, I want to emphasize to all of us that we must not go down a path of populism today, but let us choose a bold path, a path that will assure each and every Kenyan, regardless of where they come from, their social background, their ethnic background, their religious background, assure every Kenyan of sustained peace, security, and shared economic responsibility. Finally, fellow Kenyans, if we view our health crisis, indeed, first and foremost, as a health crisis, but also switch our view and ask ourselves that this can also be looked at not just as a danger, but an opportunity, I do believe that we can completely rearrange our country. And we have seen it in the various new ways even we as government are reorganizing ourselves, in the manner in which this crisis has forced us to focus on the most disadvantaged in our country, in the health clinics that we are building in our informal settlements, in the roads that we are building in our informal settlements where the majority of our people live, in the opportunities through Kazi Mtaani and many other government programs that we intend to initiate to support our young people, in the manner in which we are also reorganizing our government to take advantage of digital technology in the performance of our work and in our outreach. I do believe we can rearrange our country. I do believe that it is possible and that our constitutional architecture can be not a conflict resolution document, but a document that lays the architecture of our future heritage. And indeed, as Abraham Lincoln once said, the only way a people or a nation can predict the future is to invent it themselves. We can invent together that future, and we want to do so through our actions of civic responsibility today. May God bless you all. May God continue to bless this great Republic of Kenya. Asanteni sana, twashukuru.